Hi, we're back on. We're back to episode 23 now, and in the last one, I was telling you about the yacht race that we'd had out in Adelaide Bay, where, to be honest with you, it didn't really suit me. It was I didn't find it too pleasant an experience, but it was something that you sort of put a little tick against and say, yeah, I've been in a yacht race and we actually won the thing. So we've got a good few days off in Adelaide, and we just, sitting in the sunshine, just finding a few bars, and just relaxing. It had been a long season and it was good to get a few days off. And I remember, one of the hotel that we were stopping in was quite close to the Adelaide Oval, which is obviously the Adelaide cricket ground, and we'd got a sort of a sun terrace and a pool at the top of our hotel, which was really quite pleasant. And one of the days we were sunbathing up there and having a swim, and we'd heard this music going on, and it was obviously that there was going to be a big concert on at the Adelaide Oval, but I'd not realised actually who it was. But anyway, they started doing the sound check in the sort of in the afternoon, and it was Sting. And he was playing on that evening for he was doing a big concert at the Oval. But one of the guys, actually, there were only four of us up on the top of this roof, and I spotted this fella just on his sunbed, and he got a nice looking lady beside him, and it was Bryan Ferry. So he was out there actually to do, I think he was out there to do a show as well, probably later in the week, and we had a little chat to him as well, But Bryan Ferry, he's always been a bit of a cool customer, but we didn't go to the Sting concert. I don't think I was that too fussed about the music really. We got into, or I'd certainly got into a lot of Australian rock during that season. Again, I often refer to Harvey, our chief mechanic. He was an Aussie guy, and he got me into a band called Cold Chisel, who were an Aussie rock band, and the singer from them was a guy called Jimmy Barnes. Well, we got hold of I got hold of a Jimmy Barnes album earlier in the year. I think it was called Driving Wheels, and for me it was one of the best rock albums that I'd really ever heard, and it was one of those that myself and George, we both loved that type of music, and we'd have that blasting away in the truck for hours upon end, to be honest with you, and lots of that type of rock. We got there were a lot of Aussie bands around at those times. Another one I really liked, and he's still singing to this day, and he's brilliant if ever you catch him out, and he does stuff with Jimmy Barnes. It's a guy called Johnny Diesel, and at the time he was sort of like a young punky type rocker, but he had a band called Johnny Diesel and the Injectors, and they were terrific. And if you get a chance to have a look at a duet he's done recently with Jimmy Barnes, I think it's called If I Fell. Anyway, again, I can put a link on that tune down the bottom, but that's really good. And then there's a lot of other Aussie bands. There was obviously In Excess. They were probably the most successful. Bands like Noiseworks, Men at Work, and then there was a band called Midnight Oil. Now, this was another one that we discovered sort of earlier on in the season, and their one hit really that was probably most known in Europe was a song called Beds Are Burning, and I'll always remember that song with a smile on my face, really, because one of our truckies, Biddy, I've mentioned him before, Keith Biddick. He was such a laugh at things, but he used to play. We had these setup bars which were for the cars, which were a great big long tube, and he'd blow them, the hollow tube. He'd blow them like a hunting horn, and he could get one hell of a noise out of them. So he'd be playing this hunting horn, and then he'd be off doing doing his mule train with the beer tray and all that kind of thing. But this Beds Are Burning by Midnight Oil had got a little part in it that it's just got it's actually like a trombone, and but anyway, we put this on the sound system in the garage, this Beds Are Burning, and then give Biddy a shout, and he'd get these setup bars, and he'd be really blowing along with this, and it was terrific. But I mean, we also knew that another big Aussie guy at the time was a guy called John Farnham, and he'd had a worldwide hit with a song called You're the Voice, and he was going to be appearing on the show, the after race show, because they always had a big gig in Australia. And in future episodes I'll tell you more about how we actually got involved with that. But John Farnham, he was a great performer. So consequently, yeah, we tended to spend our time in plenty of bars, but we'd always, I'd always try and find out live music. I remember going on my own one night to see this guy. He's an old American singer, country singer called Sleepy LaBeef, and he'd had a few sort of country and western hits and that, and I went in this place, and there were probably 3 people in, and but what a fantastic gig. We just had to, I just treated it as it was a bit of a night out, and saw this guy. It was a shame for him because everybody else I think had gone out to enjoy themselves around the town and everything like that, and poor old Sleepy LaBeef, I think he was playing to 3 people. And there was another bar which again will feature in future episodes, that we used to go to, and it was a pub called the Earl of Aberdeen, and it was a fabulous pub. Again, lots of live music in there, and it took us a little while, but we found out our favourite ones, like at the Circuit Sports Cafe and that, and the Earl of Aberdeen, and basically they became our regular haunts. But anyway, we sort of we're going on into the second week, and all the freight starts to turn up in Australia from Japan, and come Monday it's sort of back into the track and back to work, because obviously what we'd got to do, we'd got rebuilds of the cars to do from the Japanese Grand Prix, and one of those cars was Gugelmin's car, because he'd had quite a big shunt in Japan, so that all needed to be rebuilt. We got engine changes to do, but basically we were sort of working through the day. No late nights, there was no need for it, apart from getting out at night. We finished work at about 5 o'clock, something like that, back to the hotel, and then off again we were. And as I've said, there was plenty of nightlife in Adelaide, and but one of the things that we always, I certainly always tried to do, and some of the guys, there was where we were staying was in a hotel, and it was quite close to Adelaide Station and the casino, and outside of that casino they'd got this big old, it was almost like a railway carriage, and it was called the Great Australian Pie Cart, and they used to do this South Australian, we call it a delicacy, and it was called a pie floater, And these days, if you go out and you've had a few drinks and that, you usually up end up having a kebab or, you know, a bag of chips or something. But in Adelaide, we had a pie floater, and what it was a dish with it was a bowl of mushy peas, and you could pick whatever pie you wanted, your steak and kidney pie, chicken and mushroom pie or anything, and they would plonk it in this basin of mushy peas, and you put your sauce on it and all the rest of it. And after a good night out, an Aussie pie floater was as good a food as you could have. And the next day, with all the mushy peas, you always knew who'd been on the pie floaters the night before. So yeah, that was, we made that a bit of a staple diet. But in the next episode, I'll come on to you know, a bit later in the week, and a few people that turned up to say hello, and what we did during the race and certainly after the race.